Hi guys, this is the Forgetful Scholar. Welcome back. I'm Jessica. So this week I had a couple of good books and then one really disappointing one. So I think we're going to get into the disappointing rant. First, just get it out of the way. Get it out of here, you know what I mean? So the disappointing one, and I'm going to put a little spoiler tag on the bottom so you could skip if you don't want to ruin anything for yourself. It's just this one, I don't think I'll be able to explain why I'm disappointed in it without giving some spoilers, unfortunately. So there's that. So The Gilded Scarab by Anna Butler. It's a beautiful cover. It really is. So this is a steampunk MM, takes place in the Regency era. And the thing about this one, I was, by the description on the back of the book, I was kind of thinking maybe steampunk Indiana Jones type, and maybe because my expectations were that, I was left disappointed. I gave this book 2 stars. And I hated doing it because you could tell right off the bat how enthusiastic and how excited the writer is. Like, you could just feel the excitement off the page. And that's lovely. That's really sweet. I just also feel that there could have been 100 pages just cut out of the book. It just muddied the plot itself down, slowed down the tempo, made things a little bit more, for my sake, from my opinion, boring than they had to be. So let's get into it. So we are in Ralph Lancaster's POV. He is a pilot. And the first scene, which was fantastic opener, he crashes. And in the hospital, his vision is blurred. So he kind of already knows he won't be able to fly again. We didn't need the long scene in the base. It just really didn't add anything to it. I don't know if the writer thought that scene would be like, oh yeah, he's gay, but we kind of find out that he is gay, like a chapter or 2 later when he goes to Marguerite's, which is an upscale hotel that caters to wealthy gentlemen that prefer the company of gentlemen. It's a secret club that they can meet, and get together. So we didn't really need that. We didn't need just the pages upon pages of Raph wandering the city. And also a disclaimer, I am going to say the word coffee a lot, and yes, I do say it like that. I am from New Jersey. I have never been able to soften that word. I mean, here we are. So that's going to be said a lot in this, because basically this was a steampunk coffee house story. That's what it seemed like. That's what it focused on. And it was a shame because the house system that the writer sets up was beautifully done. Very intricate, you easily fell into it. And I was like, okay, there's real talent here. That's really good. But he was wandering the city for pages upon pages. I suppose that was to show that he was depressed, but we could get that in one chapter. We didn't need multiple. It felt like multiple chapters. It felt like the actual story, didn't start till 100 pages in. Like, it was kind of, I'm sorry, but it was kind of ridiculous, okay? It was a little ridiculous. And the love line, oh my gosh. Okay, so I understand in a romance, there's a lot of cliches. In every genre, there's a lot of cliches. There are also cliches, there's also pillars mistaken for cliches. So there's some pillars that have to happen for the reader to feel like, oh, this is that genre. Okay, I get it. And you don't necessarily have to conform to them, but at least some semblance of it, because I didn't know who the hell the main couple was. Raph, who is depicted as a very charming scoundrel, didn't come off that way, but we were told multiple times that that's what he was. To me, it didn't come off that way. And I love a lovable scoundrel, and I was like, cool. Oh, okay. I mean, he's sad. His whole life has been thrown for a loop. Maybe that's it. Maybe it'll pick up later. He meets Ed/Ned, big spoiler, Ed used a fake name, and he really goes by Ned. It wasn't that big of a spoiler. I kind of figured that out, like, pretty early on, so I don't think it's a big thing. Again, like I said, if you don't want any spoilers, the moment the spoiler sign goes off, I'm done. So they meet in Marguerite's, and they have, they have a night together. They spend a night together, and the sex scenes, spicy. Sex scenes were fun. They have a night together. Ned is, I believe in this book they call it, etherologist, so basically archaeologist, and he's going on the dig the next day. So that's too bad. It felt like the next page, or like so close after, Ned talks about going to, I think it was Fox Street, to have blowjobs by multiple male prostitutes. He went back to Marguerite's. Ned was in there, so he slept with like another couple of guys. So it was just like, because what I was saying before, one of the cliche pillars is when the main couple meets, it's kind of all about that main couple. They're supposed to stand out as like, because this is romance, it's make-believe, they're supposed to stand out as like soulmates made for each other, no one else can compare thing. And I wasn't sure what the writer was going for, because Raph falls into a relationship with this one character named Daniel pretty quickly. And I was like, okay, if you wanted Raph to be in a relationship with someone else before the main couple really starts off, maybe have Raph and Ned together years ago, because Ned is a etherologist. He could go on a dig where, Raph happens to be stationed with the Air Force. That could happen. You're the writer. You can make that happen. But this just felt like, yeah, Ned and Raph had a fun time and they think each other is super attractive, but that's all it was. There's no real connection. So it kind of diminishes the trope of like one true love thing, which I was just like, what's happening? And I was like, wait, is Daniel and Raph the main couple? Because for them establishing a relationship with them and then them breaking off, we got a lot of sex scenes with them. I wouldn't say like a copious amount, but more than Ned and Raph got in a romance novel. And sometimes I have read books where the main hero is in a relationship with somebody else and they meet the other person, but they're still in a relationship, and you do get a love scene in the hero and the older, soon to be ex scene. That usually shows how disconnected that couple is between the emotion and the physical. The hero's not really enjoying themselves, and the partner of soon to be ex doesn't really seem to notice or care. So there's a part where the reader is like, oh, okay, you deserve to be taken care of, like thought about, and so you're not happy. Please break up with this person and end up with XYZ, because obviously, soulmates. That's kind of not what happened. We got a lot of good, spicy sex scenes between Raph and Daniel, and it didn't seem to be any kind of conflict until like later on. Well, I shouldn't say later on, between the sex scenes where Daniel seems to be pretty unstable. And not scary unstable, but like a grown man in his 40s crying in public unstable. And stomping his foot like a child unstable. It was a very odd choice. And Daniel happens to be the ex of Ned as well. So Raph and Daniel break up before Ned comes back into the whole picture. Kind of didn't have to happen. Like, they could have established Daniel as Ned's ex, obsessive ex, and that would have been fine. But they didn't. So Ned comes back, and it's pretty rude at first, and Raph is very forgiving. So he's like, oh no, it's cool, And Ned just kind of comes in and out of the coffee shop. Ugh. Sorry, I like hiccuped in the middle of it. Sorry. So comes back to the coffee shop, which is now called Lancaster's Luck. And by the way, we've got like 3 chapters involving buying the coffee shop. Like, this really did seem like, and the steampunk machine to make the coffee itself seemed really cool, and it did really just seem that the writer wanted to write about a steampunk coffee shop, because that's kind of what it was. And I don't look at the reviews, but one caught my eye because they had a picture of what, like, an actual steampunk coffee house and what that would look like real live picture. I was like, oh, that's cool, I want to visit there. But I don't want to read a book about it when it's supposed to be steampunk romance. So Raph and Ned just decide to kind of court, kind of be friends. At first, like, Raph has no idea Ned's intentions because Ned keeps it very platonic and things like that. I mean, things escalate. They kind of start courting, which was sweet. We got a few dates here and there. I think 2 or 3. One of the dates, I was like, what? So one of them, Ned takes Raph to the museum to show him around. And Ned says, hey, I know we're taking it slow because I want to take things slow. But if you wanted to go back to Marguerite's and sleep with people, other people, I would understand. And Raph's like, wouldn't you be jealous? And Raph's like, I'll try. And Ned's like, I'll try not to be jealous. And I'm like, what? What? I was generally confused. Because another trope is jealousy. The people, the couple usually gets jealous of the other person when they never usually had jealousy before, when they're not jealous people before. So the fact that Ned's like, oh yeah, no, sleep with other people, I'll try not to be jealous, it'll be fine. Was that supposed to show that Ned was like a giving person? Because it didn't seem like that. It seemed like, again, their connection really didn't mean anything. It was kind of fighting against this romance that was supposed to be the main point of the story, but the main point of the story seemed to be how to brew steampunk coffee. That seemed to be the main point of the story. So, my lipstick's a mess today, sorry. But, so stuff, escalates, and, there's a few hints in there about the third act conflict. I really didn't think it was enough. It just kind of felt like the writer quickly shoved the third act conflict in there and then backtracked and added like 2 scenes where, oh, see, it's connected. Ooh. And I'm like, no, it's not. So, Daniel sells antiquities on the side, which, Ned isn't very happy about, but he does nothing about it because apparently he's passive as fuck. So in this, Ned beats up Raph, takes Ned hostage, and tells Ned if he doesn't go with him, he will kill Raph. So Ned goes with him. They go to the museum to steal stuff. Ned has to open it so he could get some artifacts. Turns out the Scarab was like a listening device that Daniel gave out. Like, it wasn't even an artifact that was going to be stolen, nothing like that. I thought that was kind of cheesy. I was like, oh, all right, fine. So Raph and Ned's guards, because Ned is the heir to one of the houses, they go after him and they save him. And in the process of that, Raph kills Daniel, who was his ex as well. There is a scene, I will give it, that scene's like, oh, Ned's like, oh, I'm so happy you're here. And then he leaves. And then we're stuck with a mourning, guilt-ridden Raph and thinks that Ned hates him. And there are physical clues from Ned that, indicate that that's true. Then Ned shows up at Raph's apartment. Raph lets him in, open arms. They have sex. And Ned's like, oh, I didn't think you blamed yourself. I blamed myself. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You can't do that. You can't shove that in. If we're not in the person's POV and we can't see their guilt-ridden thoughts, you need to give us indications, physical indications we can see through the story. We had Ned's father, who is the head of one of the most powerful houses, comes to Raph to see if Raph's okay after killing Daniel. And when Raph mentions Ned, the father's face tenses up, indicating he's not happy with how Ned is handling this. So the writer is capable of this. I think that's why I was so disappointed. They have such amazing talent, and I just felt like it didn't come out, as well as it could. You know what I mean? if we're supposed to believe Ned felt guilty, then when he leaves the hostage situation, which it was very clearly said did not look back at Raph, have him look back at Raph and have the bodyguard pull and push him and guide him out of the area. Shows confliction. Like, Ned's conflicted. He wants to go, he wants to stay. He's sad, but he's thinking of Raph as well. In the funeral where Raph goes to pay his respects, because he is really sad. You know, he did care for Daniel. So when he goes there to pay his respects, Ned looks at him, face tense, and turns away from him. That's, like, dismissive. If you want us to believe that he has complicated thoughts about this, maybe have Ned look sad, look to the floor, you know, give a tense sigh, and then turn back, you know? Something that shows us physically that Ned is having issues coming to grips with this. All we saw was that he blamed Raph for it. Raph thought that, it indicated that, and we're in Raph's head well, the whole book, but, like, man, was it boring being in his head. And then, you know, it's like, oh yeah, now they're together, do. And I'm like, what is this? This is not a romance. This is not steampunk romance. This is steampunk coffee shop, I don't know, with a side of sex, I guess. It wasn't, and I don't know which best-selling author said this, but I remember seeing an interview, and I don't remember who said it, but they said if you're going to write a genre, read that genre over and over and over again. And I'm not sure if this author reads romance. I'm sure they read fantasy and steampunk, because that was fantastic, but I don't think they read romance, because it didn't have any of the indicators of romance. I didn't care about the couple. I didn't care about any of that. And I didn't even, usually I love the roguish characters, but this, I found Raph completely boring. I didn't care about him. And even so, at the end, I was like, Raph, you deserve better, because Ned's kind of a selfish dick. Like, we're supposed to believe he's caring and thinks about everybody else. We're told that over and over again. But it doesn't come through. It really doesn't. And at one point, I was like, I finished the story, and my younger brother was over it, and I was like, oh, I'm fucking pissed. Like, I shouldn't be angry finishing a romance. Like, that's not how it goes. And, like, I was like, at one point, I was like, I would rather Raph ended up with Hugh, which is someone that was with him in the Air Force and then comes to work with him. I was like, they would be a cuter couple to me than Ned and Raph, because Ned seems like a pretty self-absorbed jerk. And, like, Raph, who I found boring and uninteresting, could do better. That's why this is 2 stars. I don't want to read. There's I think there's multiple of this universe. I don't want to read it. I really don't. And the only reason it's not 1 star is because the author obviously has amazing talent. There are some things that were so flawless, seamless, and interesting, but it just got bogged down. It kind of had a feel of fan fiction. Sometimes, hey, I read fan fiction. Sometimes fan fiction, amazing. Like, you're like, oh, they have to be a published author because it's fantastic. Sometimes it's complete garbage. And other times there's this middle ground where it's a fun story, but that didn't seem to have a path. Like, this didn't seem to have a plot line. It seemed to kind of go along as, you know, evolved, went along, and then later they kind of shove things in to be like, see, it was there all along. No, I don't buy it. 2 stars. Okay, that long-ass rant is over. Got a little carried away. I was just so excited for it. So I think it really, like, bummed me out, because I really wanted a steampunk Indiana Jones. Who doesn't want a steampunk Indiana Jones, right? Come on, right? All right, so the next book, Strange Medicine, Dr. Samuel Thornton Murder Mysteries by S.C. Wynne. It's pretty cool, huh? So this one, I gave 4 stars. This is a whole new little series I'm starting. So again, with series, I do the individual books, give them ratings, and then I'll give an overall score. This one was 4 stars. It was so much fun. I really liked the Dr. Maxwell, Max, because he was a little different for a hero. He was very, like, I wouldn't say emotionless, but he was very much like, how can I put this? He he's used to being like the top surgeon, and he goes to this really small town because a patient died on the table and he can't deal with the guilt, and he says once a surgeon loses their confidence, they're not a surgeon anymore. So he goes to a small town in Texas and becomes their GP, general provider. And a lot of people apparently didn't like him at first because he in the comments, because he was kind of rude to people. But I'm like, no, he just showed up from the airport. People were coming in demanding to be treated. He didn't have supplies or anything. I understood where he was coming from. And he's very much like a efficient doctor, but not so much with the bedside manner. And this one, we got his POV and we got the sheriff's POV, which was really, really cool. Sheriff Royce's POV, which is really fun, like 2 different POVs. So I really enjoyed that. So basically their romantic storyline starts, and then there's a murder and Max is a suspect. And the sheriff is like, come on, if you were in my position, you would have to question me. And Max is like, I know, I understand that. Doesn't mean that I'm not still angry about it. Fantastic. Their scenes are very hot together. Hot and spicy together. And this is a contemporary MM. And so it's not so much Max is looking into the murder. It's sort of like he gets dragged in because of circumstance. And I don't want to give anything away. The crime story ending was very satisfying. It was very interesting, very satisfying. And there's a cute little puppy that shows up. Grumpy, he's adorable. The love line ending was really good too. And it's nice because at the end of it, they don't say that they're together, because they kind of really, you realize that they kind of just met. This is like them seeing each other for like maybe less than a month, but it immediately bleeds off to the second book, which I definitely will read. So that's good. So this is 4 stars. It kind of reminded me of that really old show, Murder, She Wrote. I love the show. I have like the box set of all of it. I love that. I love the reruns. When I was a kid, I would like, I wanted to be Jessica Fletcher. I still want to be Jessica Fletcher. Let's be real. So the small town kind of had that vibe. It was a lot of quirky people in it, and it just kind of had that, like, this would be a fantastic show. Like, I would love this. So it kind of had that feel to it. So this is fantastic. This was 4 stars. Now moving on to the third one, and this is also another steampunk. So this is called Steamed. MacAlister. By Katie MacAlister. I thought that cover was really fun. It kind of gave me Wizard of Oz vibes. So this one I was surprised I liked, because I usually don't like different dimension type stuff. Like, I don't like different dimension Groundhog Day or Freaky Friday stuff. And this is like different dimension. So this is Dr. Jack Fletcher. He is a neuroelectrical engineer working with quantum computers. And he's in what seems like our universe. And he's apparently, like, the author did an amazing job to set up that he just kind of ends up in these crazy, wacky circumstances. Like, apparently he's very handsome too, because all the girls in the office were like fawning over, and they're like, oh, he saved our boss from this and this. He's like, no, that was just a mistake with the luggage. Oh, he stopped this whaler. He's like, no, this, and no one listens to what really happens, but he seems to always get like dragged into these wacky circumstances and gets portrayed as the hero. And he's just like, all right. In his office, his sister, whose name is Hallelujah, called Haley, she's there. And let me tell you, I hated her. She was the only thing in this book that annoyed me. Like, seriously. And this book I gave 3 stars just because I'm not interested in the next book because it has to do with the sister. But I really like the writer and I liked her style, so I'm gonna check out more of her books. So the sister, who visits her brother in his lab, starts fiddling with his equipment, and he's like, knock it off, put that down, and he's panicked and trying to get her, and she shakes it. I was like, I understand that she is the plot device, and like her dumb actions and choices really push the whole story forth, so I get what she's there for. Doesn't mean I have to like her. which I didn't. So they end up in a parallel universe where it was 2010 when the story starts with Jack's universe, and in the steampunk universe is 2010 as well. And it's all steampunk, and it's very Victorian kind of morale and things like that. Octavia, I loved Octavia. She is the captain in the steampunk world. I really liked her. She's a lot of secrets. She was a lot of fun. The crew was a lot of fun. The cook, though, I could have done without. I felt like Octavia was a little too, like, passive when it came to the cook. The cook, at one point, she says that he, like, came into her room naked and threw himself on her. And I'm like, and he really sexually harasses. Like, it's not floating sexual harassment. And she just kind of, like, sighs and, like, oh, what are you going to do about it? Like, what is your life, honey, that some little jerk like that keeps doing that, and you're just like, oh, it's Tuesday. No, throw him off the ship. It is stated right in the beginning, that Jack is a Quaker. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting, I've never read a story where the hero's a Quaker. That's pretty interesting. I wonder if it ties in. And it does. He's really against killing and things like that. He was in army, and the sister kind of indicates that he dealt with intelligence in the army. So I like that Jack can take care of himself. Haley, she says she's a black belt, but Jack's like, you're not a black belt. So I think she has some self-defense in there too, which I liked. Again, the sister does a couple of stupid choices, and it really does push the plot forward. I really like the ending, and I really like the ending too. It was very satisfying. The sex scenes were fun. There was this overall jovial comedy to the writing style that I was kind of surprised and really liked. There wasn't any full out jokes, but there was just a kind of a whimsicalness to it that I really, really enjoyed. So this I gave 3 stars because the next book is about the sister, and I don't want to read it. Sorry, Haley, I'm not interested in your story. But this author has a ton of other books, so I think I'm going to check her out. So this was a lot of fun. And then the last book. Hey guys, I finally read the 3rd Wallflowers. So this is the 3rd in the Wallflower series, Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas. And I said in a video a couple weeks ago I needed a break from the Wallflower series just because I didn't get how this hero, Sebastian St. Vincent, could be likable. And yes, Lisa Kleypas, you are a master of your craft. I don't want to say he was likable, but you're kind of like, okay. You kind of let it slide what he did in the other book, or forget what he did in the other book, because a lot of different things. So, and Evie Jenner. This is her story. And, like, I knew I'd love her story. And, like, she's on the list of, like, my top 10 favorite heroines in romance novels. Because, some are fun. Like, they kick in the door, guns blazing, here I am. And then there are other kinds of strength. And Evie, who's really shy and has a stammer, she has different kind of strength. And it really, really shows in this book, and I just love that. I just loved it. And I had no idea. I don't know if it was said in the other Wallflower books, but in the first Lisa Kleypas book that I read for this channel was Dreaming of You, and or one of the, I think it was the second one. And if I remember correctly, Derek Craven, his gambling competitor was Evo Jenner, Evo Jenner, and that is Evie's dad. I had no idea until this book. So in the end of the second Wallflowers book, with Marcus and Lillian as the main couple, Evie shows up at St. Vincent's house and is like, I have a proposal for you. That's where it stops. That's where this book starts. So she basically proposes a marriage of convenience for her to get out of her house. And we see that her house is a lot worse than what the other Wallflowers know. Like, there is not only are they locking her in a room and not feeding her, there is abuse, like physical, emotional, as well. Like her girl uncle has beaten her up, things like that. It's pretty bad. So she's willing to marry St. Vincent, who kidnapped her friend because he's desperate for money and she's desperate to get out. So she's like, okay, this is perfect. I'm not going to be fooled. I'm not going to fall in love with this gorgeous man because I know he's basically can't keep it in his pants and I just need a way out of my family. And we do see St. Vincent being really considerate to Evie, even when they're going to Scotland to get a quickie marriage. You can see he's very considerate and things like that. Sex scenes, top notch. There is, at one point, Evie's like, if you could go 3 months without having sex, then I'll have sex with you. And this is one of the pillars I was talking about. For him, for St. Vincent, even though he has hundreds of women, Evie stands out. There's something about her that no other girl compares to her, and he doesn't want, the first time, he's not even thinking about other women. He just wants to sleep with his wife. A pillar in romance. See? That's what it is. So we believe that they're, soulmates and one of a kind because of that. He's really sweet when Evie's father passes away. I'm not giving anything away that's not written in the back of the book. By the way, I'm trying to be really careful about that. So basically they fall in love in the context of being married. And I think it is helped because St. Vincent, instead of just being idle, he is starting to run the gambling club and he has other stuff to do. Work is fulfilling him also, So I do like how that seems to be a running theme with her books, that work is good. Hey, 1800s, titled people, work is good, you're just lazy bastards. That's kind of a funny little theme through her books. So it's really great. We do get the setup for Daisy's story. It's pretty much shoved in our face, here, this is the couple, that's what's going to happen. That's the next book. Hope to see you there. So that's kind of that. So this one is a 4-star. The only reason it's not a 5-star, because I really liked Evie in this, is because I do think you need to read the other ones to kind of get it. They do a good job of recapping and everything, but I don't think you get the severity of how desperate St. Vincent was without the Lillian and Marcus story, and I don't think you get how desperate Evie is, the growing desperation, if you don't read the other Wallflower stories. And you should. And I'm happy I'm reading these because the friendship of these 4 girls is so wholesome and sweet, and I just adore it. It's fantastic. So that was my week. I don't want to, but I gotta get back to the real world. So see you later.